Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's Mindful Morning with Dr. Matt, along with special guest Ivana Miranda. Ivana Miranda is a project manager with the Department of Commerce and National Communications Chair for Federally Employed Women. She brings experience from human resources, finance, sports marketing, communications, sales, and entertainment. With the motto, Mission critical does not equal boring. She's known for interactive experiences and cost saving strategies. She is an instructional designer, distinguished Toastmaster, interested to learn more about this, and earned her Master of Business Administration from the University of Phoenix. Ivana was instrumental in chartering the FEW Bright Nights chapter of FEW in 2015. She has served at the chapter and regional levels. In her spare time, Ivana loves karaoke, podcasts, and supporting the arts. Wow. We certainly have a
Woohoo!
lot in common. I learned that after our first experience together last year doing a podcast. I was so honored to be a guest on the FEW podcast. And I have to tell you, of all the times I've ever been interviewed in my entire life, you were the most interactive. You do live up to the bio that I just read here. And it was such an exciting time. And I know not everybody who's paying attention to this podcast is able to see us both right now. You could see bright smiles. We're very energized and ready to go. And I'm especially excited to move forward with this interview here today. But you know what? You did catch my attention here going through the bio. So you're a distinguished Toastmaster.
I
About
am.
this. Like giving toast, cheers at like weddings and different occasions like that. Is that what we're talking about?
That's hilarious. There is actually an organization called Toastmasters International.
Got
It's a
you.
nonprofit organization that focuses on public speaking and leadership. And they
Oh,
actually have curriculum, coursework that you go through, projects that you complete, levels that you get to, and Distinguished Toastmaster is one of the highest levels that you can get to in the organization. So it took quite a bit of work, quite a bit of elbow grease to get that thing done, but it was exciting. So, yes, offering a toast at a wedding could be one potential project that you work on, but there's so many others, including advanced speeches, such as giving a keynote speech at an event or all sorts of things like that. There's lots of different possibilities.
well, the proof is definitely in the pudding, and you're representing the organization quite well because, again, you are one of the most energetic, yet very on point hosts I've ever had the experience of working with. So, this is truly a great opportunity to have with you. And, as much fun as you have, I also know a fair amount of your work is quite serious too, and the support that you give. And really do love some of the government updates you have there and supporting self care and just being, somebody here who's spreading a wealth of information to other people, but doing it in a manner where it's relatable and people do feel good about themselves. And I think that that's just absolutely fantastic. And it's just, again, it's truly an honor to have this opportunity with you here again. So thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Well, how about, beyond the bio I just read, why don't you share some things that are important to you? Like, what do you do? What do you love? What's going on in your life?
Well, I have to say, thank you very much for making me feel good about myself, Matt. You were so kind with all the hype and the positive encouragement and feedback. Thank you. I love what I do from every level, but let me just first say I'm a single parent. I have two amazing daughters. It is very rare that I'm ever in a conversation and I don't talk about them. They're both creative artists, they're both advocates of themselves and other people. And so I just love, love, love. I taught them at a very, very early age how to stand up for themselves. And they've carried that over to standing up not only for themselves, but their friends, the community at large. And I just think they've taken my efforts to an entirely different level. So I love that. I love seeing just something small that you might have planted, where that seems small yourself. And then you see other people take it and they grow it and they grow it. And it's just amazing. So I'm always proud to speak about my kids. And it's just beautiful to see how I've been able to positively influence them. So that's huge for me.
Most important job in life is being a parent. And I love that that's something else we can connect with too. And in terms of the
Yes.
communication, here we are, we're talking about toasts and celebrations and keynoting, podcast hosting, and so on. But having these skills certainly can help carry forward, especially in the way that you are raising your children. And time again, whether I'm in the role of clinician working with one of my clients who's struggling interpersonally, if I'm working with some of my students in the clinical capacity, helping them develop their counseling skills, guess what they're lacking? Assertion. So often people think that being assertive is being aggressive, and it's not the same thing at all whatsoever. Asserting yourself doesn't mean being a bully or putting other people down or even having to raise your voice. None of that type of stuff is necessary, but standing up for yourself, standing up for what's right,
Yes.
coming from an
Yes.
evidence-based position and ensuring you articulate yourself in a manner where people hear and hopefully they'll ultimately follow through. And if they don't, guess what? Probably not the people you need in your life anyway, right?
I love what you said there. An evidence-based position. There's
Mhm.
always data, there's always supporting evidence, documentation to support what you're saying. You're just not making it up out of thin air. And there's a hint of diplomacy always to
Absolutely.
what it is that we do, right? That's where the difference between assertiveness and aggression comes in. We're not just taking over with our feelings or, smacking someone over the head with information. No, we're taking a step back and saying, how can I graciously offer my position and the information that I'm presenting, but in a helpful way that creates a win-win, or at least attempts to create a win-win for everybody involved? I think it's a different perspective, a different objective.
Absolutely. And, in these types of conversations, sometimes there's room for negotiation. Oftentimes there will be some type of negotiation there. But,
Woo!
especially the face for the stuff that just isn't right, it's very important to make sure we're moving forward with that. And those are really important skills to give your kids. It can help them many different ways in life. So that's
Right.
amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. What other types of things you got going on?
Oh my goodness, going on. Well, you mentioned podcast and karaoke. Karaoke is something I have always loved to do. I was a theater kid, and so that was one of the fun things that we did. All the theater kids would get together and go to karaoke, and some would be really great, some would be terrible, but it was always very competitive when you get in a circle with other performing arts people. It's very intense. But I love it now when you go with people that aren't necessarily performing arts based. They're just ready to have a few drinks, kick back, and they don't care how they embarrass themselves or how we embarrass ourselves. They're just letting it go, and it's more for fun than anything else. And I just love that.
Well, that's a great way for connecting with other people. So letting your hair down a bit, having a good time. And I could see
Yes.
definitely again, with the theater piece and how well you articulate yourself, it all coming together. And karaoke is one of my favorites. But I hear it pronounced differently by different people. Sometimes karaoke, sometimes it's karaoke. I intentionally say
Oh,
karaoke because people get
I've
amazed.
never
Like,
heard
that's the
that.
lady. Yeah, I've
Oh.
never heard it before. I don't know. Well, I like throw it out there and they're like, there's Dr. G and his karaoke. And
I
so
love
fun
that.
with it, whether you're taking the lead or you're harmonizing or even doing the little backgrounds. Like, what is it like Lady Gaga poker face? I'm like, ma, 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 ma. Like do that whole little thing. You can
Yes.
have fun with it. You
Yes.
don't need to be a great singer, and most of the people who go up there aren't. But hey, that could be another, putting yourself out there, self confidence building type of activity as well. So there's so many benefits out of
Oh
karaoke,
my
right?
goodness. You're so right. And it's funny talking about putting yourself out there and being willing to just branch out a little bit. One of the things I did with my kids over the holiday weekend was an improv class, right? And it wasn't about perfection or trying to, work towards something. It was really just a chance for us to get out of our own heads, to not worry about being perfect and just say, okay, I'm going to show up. We're going to have fun, let loose a little bit, experiment with something that we haven't ever done before or that they hadn't done before. And it was just a fun time of being silly and being silly with other people that we'd never met before, which, how many people are willing to do that?
Well, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing too. I mean, if you take yourself too seriously with karaoke, I mean, come on, it's supposed to be something that is fun, but it's true. If you put yourself out there with that and you feel confident, even when you can't hold a tune to save your soul, you could probably be more comfortable going into other things such as interviews, meeting new people, going into new environments, all this different, type of stuff here can really go a long way for people. And it's so fun going ahead and doing that type of thing. But I always laugh about that awkward social situation. You go to a place, there's a karaoke machine, usually have the DJ who's up there playing random songs. They're passing the book, everyone's looking at one another, talking about what they might sing or not. Hardly anybody is willing to start it off. But once that first person goes, That's when the line starts going. And I love how at first, it takes about 30, 40 minutes to get the first person to go. And then by the end of
Yes.
the night, there's a backlog and everybody gets a request filled. Why are we like
It
this?
is just like the middle school dance, right? Where everyone is
Excellent.
standing against the walls,
Yes.
thinking, I really want to get out there, but terrified. You don't want
Yes.
to embarrass yourself. You don't want to put yourself out there. But you're right that after that first brave person breaks the ice, then it's like, oh, I want to go. I want to go. And
Mhm.
it's always a line after that. You can't hold people back after that.
I used to love those middle school dances too. It'd be about a yardstick away from my, girlfriend with the slow dance. The
Yes.
Boys to Men. The Boys to Men was the big one back then. Other bands like Real McCoy and Ace of Base, all that good stuff.
Oh man,
Yes,
man.
you gotta love it. You gotta love it. Well, and I feel like this opening discussion here really does tie into one of the themes that we want to discuss here in this podcast, that of self-care. So, I know, doing the federally employed women podcast. When you think of federally employed women, you think there's a lot of responsibility, probably a lot of work, a lot of time, dedication, and so on to that type of role. So it was some pretty heavy stuff. And, if you don't have the work-life balance, things can ultimately start to fall out. So I'm wondering, what types of common stressors are you seeing for federally employed women or women in general? How about we just start there?
Oh my goodness. Okay.
A lot,
Well,
right?
women in the workplace, right? Common stressors, period. You've got the normal challenges of not always being taken seriously, having to work extra hard to prove yourself, and even then not being considered for advancement or the
Mhm.
promotions at the same level that you might deserve or that you might feel that you deserve. The data is out there that as the higher up you go in the corporate ladder or the government hierarchy, you just don't see as many women advancing. And we won't even get into the breakdown of like race and women, and the different levels there, but that's a whole different category of conversation. But the point is, you don't see a lot of women in upper levels of leadership. And so we have this battle, this struggle that's going on a regular basis. And so what you find is that women are getting more advanced degrees. We're taking on extra projects. We're doing all these extra things to try to prove ourselves, but we're not necessarily seeing the results all the time. And so burnout is real. Burnout is incredible. And trying to figure out how we do those things and still take care of ourselves. Usually we're the last person on our list of care. We've got everyone else in the sun and the moon, and then ourselves, we're at the bottom of the list in terms of care. That's why it was so important for you and I to have that conversation on self care, recharging your self care routine, because we know we're supposed to, but we just don't because there's so many other competing priorities. And we just think, okay, well, once I get to this point, then I can take a break. Or once I get to the next level, then I can take a break. But we're never getting there. The needle is always moving. We're always constantly advancing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And for those of us that are, you're talking about advocacy, and why I do the work that I do with federally employed women is because we want to see not only ourselves grow and advance, but we want to see other people and we want to change the landscape for other people. But then you've gotten, okay, that's another project on top of my 40 plus hour a week job. And so certain cases, if you're in one extra organization, okay, that's another few hours a day, a week, whatever it is. If you're in several organizations, you just add all of these things that you're doing. When is the self-care happening? When are my fun karaoke nights happening? It's almost a joke to figure out how to fit all this stuff into your life and into your calendar. And at some point, you just say, okay, I'm tired. I'm done. Nothing is happening. I'm
Mhm.
scheduling nothing for a weekend or whatever it is. But it's so much better to do that on a regular basis instead of waiting until you're about to fall apart before that happens.
No, absolutely. Well, and that's the hard thing for many people when they start to feel as though the self-care is just additional work on top of everything else that they've got going on. Can't take on another job and self-care is another job. Sorry, can't do it. But time and time again, I have to stress to people, even if you do take a day where you just do absolutely nothing and you slept in that day, you got 10 hours of sleep instead of your normal 6, 7, or 8, or even less for some people, guess what? That's productivity too, because you are recharging yourself. And it's important we recognize that. But I really appreciate the way that you just really built this up, because we have to think about it from the female perspective. And, we talk about, institutionalized oppression, institutionalized racism, discrimination, and otherwise, in the way that we are set up, women really do face an uphill battle, and the problem is too, it's almost like this gaslighting effect that you get from the institutional oppression that, oh, you're feeling additional stress as opposed to your male counterparts. Suck it up. Maybe you're not meant for this. But we have to think about too the way that women have been socialized over the years. You're the nurturer, the caregiver, the head of the family, insofar as taking care of the children, making sure their needs are met. And granted, there's a lot of men who help with that. I'm certainly one of those here on this end too. But you have society telling you this, and then you go into the workplace, and then you're starting to face even more of the oppression. And you don't quote me exactly on how much it is, but I think they still continue to post those flyers up on the wall that women earn about 71 to 78 cents to the dollar for their male counterparts. And then, as you said as well, when we take a look at other minority status, whether that is like African American, Hispanic, and otherwise, the money's even less. And this is a major problem. And though the information is out there, we're well aware this is happening, we continue turning the blind eye to it. And we continue raising these expectations. And this almost even takes me back to the beginning of our podcast, where you were telling your children, or teaching them rather, how to assert themselves. And that's a big part of this too. But, at the same time, women, okay, yeah, it would be great to be assertive yourselves, but also male counterparts, the others, we need to help step up for this too. And we need to do a much better job with creating some equity, equality, and so on here with this. So it's a very, very real issue. And it's unfortunate that the fun times we were talking about a few moments ago become compromised because of all this.
It's true. It's true. But like you said, we have to be assertive even with ourselves and figuring out how to take care of ourselves. Because otherwise, like you said, we cannot pour from an empty cup.
True.
If we're dying on the vine, we certainly cannot figure out how to build up ourselves, the environment, other people around us. And so we have to figure that out.
I love what you just said a moment ago, and I haven't heard this one too often. We have to be assertive with ourselves too. Ivana, walk me through
Woo!
that. How are you assertive with yourself? Can you give me an example of some of that self-talk?
Well, can I just say it has been an uphill battle, like you said. It is a project. I am gonna put myself out there. I just turned 50 last year. And so
Right?
I think prior to that, the pandemic was a big factor in people finally saying, you know what? I'm done. I'm done elevating everyone else and putting myself at the bottom. I'm going to take a minute and take care of myself. So I had some of that already. But then when I turned 50, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take all year. I'm going to celebrate. I had this whole campaign going 50 for 50. I took something every month of the year, and I had a list of things that I was going to do for myself. So it was big things, little things. I mean, things like massage, or lunch with a friend that I hadn't caught up with in a while, or bigger things. I went axe throwing for the first time. There were so many different kinds of things that I just wanted to try, just just to say, hey, I'm doing this for myself. I'm going to celebrate myself. I'm going to be assertive with having fun, having downtime, having a chance to relax and breathe. And I've been taking a little bit of extra time also studying and reading and trying to focus on, cultivating that inner life, because that's huge too. Being quiet, taking a moment to just be quiet and cultivating that inner life within yourself to build your own nurturing aspect and your own character, and to really just take a minute to just grow yourself, to listen to that inner voice, to pay attention to what are the things that I really want, what are the things that I really want to accomplish, as opposed to all of the noise, all of the other voices that are competing, telling you what you need to do and how to be and what you need to be. Okay, I'm going to finally take a minute to be assertive and to pay attention to myself and hear what it is that I really want to do and to be and to go from there.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate that. And happy belated birthday to you
Thank
here. It's absolutely a
you.
great idea. But it is true. We need to be assertive with ourselves and hold ourselves accountable to the self-care piece. And it goes back to that whole old adage, we work to live, don't live to work. That's very important. One thing that was really helpful for me was switching the mentality. And I'm not gonna lie, my default personality is type A, perfectionist, neurotic. Yes, neurotic. Now the good news is that it led me, to earning a PhD, having a professor job, being a clinician, and doing all these things I really do love in life. But at the same time, it's pretty darn exhausting. And one of the things about me, and I think I'm well known for it. People listening to this, you can tell me if it's not true, but I'm usually pretty quick to respond, especially when it comes to my work. Now I know some casual emails, text messages will tell you something a little bit different, but when it does come to my work, boom, immediate responses. I'm going to make sure that you get what you need there. And it was so hard to let go, because I would be done with work. And these are jobs where people are still sending emails 24/7.
Oh,
I've got my iPhone with emails connected. You've got everything on the
no,
computer.
no, turn it
And it can
off.
constantly pop up, and I'm seeing it, and I want to get to it quickly. And one day I just had enough, and I told myself, I'm like, you know what, Matt? You're the hamster in the wheel. No matter what, the work is never going to end. So you say when it ends, just stop. Like your work hours are done. You don't have to respond to this email. Stop doing it. This is you. Hold yourself accountable and don't keep looking at this stuff, because even if you respond to that email, like I did this as an example one night. I remember between 11 and midnight, I had an extra late night at work, and I was intentionally responding to one of my supervisors. I'm like, yeah, here, I'm going to be the last one to respond. And no matter what I did, it was going at 12:01. I still wasn't the last responding. I'm like, all right, good night. And then the next day we went back into it. Unfortunately, it was a big heavy. But I mean, this is the reality of the situation here, is that we have to realize the work is always going to be there. So why beat yourself up to continually try to be 100%, 100% of the time when, we're chasing something unrealistic? And really the only way to be the best possible versions of ourselves at work, as parents, especially, in our other capacities, we have to take care of ourselves. And plus, it just makes life that much more enjoyable.
Oh, wow. You're so right. And I am definitely in that same camp with you. The workaholism, woo,
Yes.
crazy. And I
Yes.
had to do it in increments. There was a point where I was doing the same thing, responding to emails 10, 11, 12 at night. And then I started to say, okay, well, even if I'm on the computer that late, I don't want to build the expectation that I'm always going to be
That's
responding at this point in
yes.
time. So I started, even though I was on the computer late, I would respond, but then not send it. I would save it for the next morning so that then at least I was sending it during normal business hours. But then I had to train myself even to back up from that and say, Ivana,
Mm,
you don't need to be on the computer 10, 11, 12 at night. Just don't do it.
that's
Because
an
you're right. The
absolute
work is always going to be there. Someone will always need something. It's never going to stop. You just have to make it stop
mhm. So
for
really the onus
yourself.
is on each of us. And that's even something I could do a little bit better with, is putting up away messages. And that's a good thought. If you have that regular away message, it comes up every single night when you're not at work, people see it. So they're not
Yes.
expecting you to respond. If you do, it's an added bonus, but don't do it because they're going to practice the self-care piece. So like that's certainly something that you want to consider here. Or one thing that I like too, and I noticed, I don't know if this is true for everyone, but now in Microsoft Outlook, there's an auto message I didn't even put up. But it'll show this is an abnormal working hour. Like normal people are at your job from 9 to 5. You're trying to respond at 8:30. You might not get a
Wow.
response. So that type of thing. So even I see our technology is starting to add something in there, or even on my phone, you have a bedtime setting, and it's for 10. I don't go to sleep at 10, but it tells me, and it'll keep telling me, get off your phone, stop doing this stuff. But setting those boundaries goes a long way, because even personally, I really won't respond to text after 9 or 10. I mean, yeah, I'll see it, but I don't want to keep getting into a conversation all night. And the same thing with the email. So when you get comfortable with that and used to it, and you hold that boundary, other people might push back at first, but they're ultimately going to come to learn that Ivana's not responding at 10, 11, 12 at night, so leave her alone.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, what other types of things you seeing out there that are good considerations for self-care?
Well, I tell you what, you mentioned the tools on cell phones and Microsoft that has the different options.
Mm,
I do love how the analytics will show you, okay, you responded to this many calls immediately, or you didn't interrupt your quiet time because it gives you focus, quiet time that you're supposed to not be doing anything but, concentrating on a particular project or initiative. And so it'll tell you when you broke that quiet time to respond to other people, to do other things. Also, I have a similar thing on my cell phone. I've got bedtime set up for 10:30.
nice.
And this is actually a result. Southern New Hampshire University has an amazing class on sleep that I
Nice.
took. It was phenomenal. They
I'm gonna have to
actually
check
came
that out.
to our national training program with federally employed women, and that one class changed my life for sure. But developing a sleep care regimen and really saying, okay, after this point in time, I'm not going to be on my cell phone. I'm going to turn off the electronics. I'm going to do something ritualistic like read a book, or maybe I'll have a relaxation session. I'll do some chair yoga or something, as I'm preparing for bedtime so that I'm not running around crazy, doing things to hype myself up. I'm slowly acclimating myself to the idea that, okay, it's time to start getting ready for bed now.
Mhm.
Not bringing my laptop into bed with me, trying to get work done.
Oh, that's like
Oh,
forbidden in my house. If my laptop comes outside the office, you see me in right now. Matt, what are you doing? Put that thing away. I don't want the kids see you working all the time. Like, okay, it's good to have those boundaries. Even sometimes too. I'll take my cell phone, throw it in a corner. I don't even want to see the thing. But I do
yes.
read through my news there because I love going through and getting the latest updates and so on. But
Yes.
sleep is really something that we cannot overestimate the importance of. And without adequate sleep, it really does compromise everything else, our ability to concentrate, our ability for our
Yes.
cells to rejuvenate. It helps us get sicker faster. If we're not sleeping, we stay sicker longer. We can be a little, stick in the mud, as they say, in terms of our, move with other people. And sleep is so important. And I find it so funny when I poll people, and again, this isn't, some Gallup poll or anything formal or like the PW poll, like type of things they do, but often when I ask people, it's a client, student, or somebody in my everyday life, what would you do if you had a 25th hour in the day? Very rarely, the minimal amount of people tell me sleep. Maybe about 1 in 5, maybe 1 in 4, if I'm being generous there, would say sleep. And I'm like, interesting, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'd spend more time at work, it's some overtime, or yeah, maybe I would go to the gym, or maybe I would do this, and the gym could be self-care too, but a lot of people start to mention even work related things so they can feel ahead. So the next day they don't feel as behind. And it's just sad the way we continue tying everything back into work. And I remember it was a career psychology class I took, and this statistic's not going to be exact at all, but I like to refer to this one often. It was something to the effect of between the ages of 22 and 65, the average person spends about 60% of their waking hours at work. From age 22 to 65, approximately 60% of your waking hours are spent at work. So let's think, if you're 60% of your time, you're miserable at work, you're not taking care of yourself in the other time, how do you think that's impacting everything else that you've got going on? I mean, we have to take care of this.
You're right. And it's funny because people talk about how maybe working from home, oh, we're not getting as much done. No, no, no. We're getting more things done
Doing
for
more, right?
those of us that are working at home, and we're spending more time on the computer. And so that commute time that we're saving, we're not using it to build into ourselves. We're using it to get more work done. So we've added extra time to our workday just by staying home, which is
Mhm.
crazy. It's insane.
Well, and it does, and it blurs the boundaries here as well. So you're right. I mean, instead of it maybe, and I'll be honest, it maybe do get an additional half hour squeezed in, sleep wise, since we're working from home, especially since the pandemic. But it's true, I would spend up to 3 hours a day in my car, and now those 3 hours are spent doing additional, work types of things while I'm here. But this is another interesting thing with work from home, and yeah, it's got its conveniences, but I do agree with you completely that we work more. And I remember, when we talk about like kind of healthy sleep with clients, and one of the things that we try to stress is, well, the bedroom is just for sleeping and sex, and that's really be all it is, because your brain will start to associate it with different things. So if you're in your bedroom playing video games, you might get the urge to play video games, or if you're reading through your iPad, your mind might start going there. So if you keep the bedroom just to sleep and sex, that's what it's for, and it'll help you fall asleep quicker. Now, if my home is my job, how do I escape the place? Like, right? My home
It's
is my
hard.
job now.
It's
Mhm.
very hard. You have to have specific space assigned. This is my workspace. Now, when I'm not here, I'm elsewhere and I'm not at work anymore. And I literally have different sections of my rooms cut off specifically for that, because otherwise you're right. You can start carrying it over into everything. It's tough. It's really tough. And on that schedule thing, I remember idolizing when I was younger. There was this kid, actually, when I was in high school. I wasn't super young, but high school. I idolized this kid because I thought, oh my goodness, he does so much. He would leave high school and then he would go and play the piano for one organization. And then after that, he'd be at a rehearsal for something else. And like every day of the week, he had 50 million things crammed into his schedule. And I just used to be amazed. And I thought, oh, I can do that. When I got to college, I started cramming my schedule. And so after college, I thought, oh, yeah, I can do even more. I can get all this stuff done. And from that point on, I was always cramming my schedule with trying to do more, accomplish more, schedule more. I barely had time to, like you said, rest. And we know college kids don't sleep very much. And
Mhm.
so you build those habits of not sleeping. And so it is really a battle now to say, okay, I'm going to take a nap, or I'm going to, and sometimes it's because I'm so dead tired that I can't do anything else, but I have to take a nap now.
Sometimes you get so tired you can't even fall asleep. I hate that. Or when you're so hungry you can't even eat. I hate that too. We don't want to get to that point. That's why I want to make sure that we're maintaining here.
No, no, we don't want to become irrational and loopy. And like you said, we can't think straight. We're making these emotional decisions that aren't based in reality sometimes. We're just getting through, you know, putting one foot in front of the other. We're not really thriving. We're just surviving, trying to get through 1 minute to the next.
Well, exactly. And I mean, the other thing that we need to keep in mind too, in terms of productivity versus self-care, is we don't want to trade one stressor for another. So as you were speaking a moment ago, seeing the example of somebody constantly the schedule just nonstop, one after another, after another, after another, after another type of thing. It's like, wow, that's inspirational. I want to be like that. So you learn to be like that in your younger years and carry forward into adulthood. And I'm quite similar, the same way. Like I told you before we even got on this podcast, that's how my day was. I've been in, nonstop meetings without breaks for about 6 hours now. But then what that does is it increases the likelihood of me being late to something else. So then I'm almost always going to be slightly late to something. That creates additional anxiety on the way getting to, that anticipatory anxiety. I'm going to be late. Oh no. Then I have to reach out to the person, let them know. Then I show up. Then I feel bad because I'm behind on what's going on. Then I'm late to the next thing, and it continues to build
Yeah.
upon. So it's like it's ridiculous to do that to ourselves, and it's very counterproductive, right? Or the same thing with multitasking. Like,
Yes. And it's unhealthy. Let's not talk about high blood pressure or heart problems or all the other stuff that goes along with killing ourselves trying to get more work done. It's just not helpful or healthy
yeah,
for
you're like
sure.
seeing more 20 and 30-year-olds on blood pressure medications, and people at younger ages having heart attacks, strokes. The stress can lead to those too.
Yes.
And these are the things
Yes.
you really do need to pay attention to. And, a lot of people, mistakenly believe, oh, yeah, like this person looks thin, happy, and healthy, but they're working themselves to the max. They're not eating appropriate nutrition, maybe having that one McValue meal a day. So they're keeping it to 2,000 calories and looking thin, but getting no nutrients. And then these are the people just drop dead, out of the middle of nowhere. And we're scratching our head. Well, what could have really happened here? It's like, well, the person worked themselves to death, literally.
Right. 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 And it's so sad. You think, wow, you don't want that to happen to you. And so what can we do? What can we do to kind of do better to take care of ourselves? And of course, we can't guarantee that nothing will ever happen to us, but we can certainly do our due diligence to build into ourselves and build as much health into our lifestyle as possible.
Absolutely. Well, I know that I could speak to you for hours, days, weeks, months, and an entire year because this has been absolutely wonderful experience. But I do have to be mindful of time, unfortunately. I know that we're starting to get there. So I'm wondering, are there any words of wisdom that you would like to impart on listeners from either your experience or something you've heard from somebody else you think is particularly helpful?
Yikes, put me on the spot, Matt.
I put you on the spot. That's it. It's what I do. It's what I'm here for.
Well, I'm just gonna go back to what we said before. Take some time and really cultivate that inner life within you. Take a moment to hear your own voice, to hear or discover what are the things that I really love most, the things that I would prioritize the most, and work towards those things. Forget all those other voices that are trying to push you in a certain direction or make you go in a way that you don't necessarily need to be going. Really take time to figure out what it is that you need to be doing for yourself and move in that direction.
To your life, your direction. Even as a clinician, we speak again and again. The client is the expert on their own lived experiences. As the counselor, you're the facilitator, the
Yes.
guide, you've got the tools, but the client is the expert on their lived experience. You know yourself better than I can possibly know you, even with the training. And it's important. Listen to yourself. I know this is common sense, and we say it again and again like a broken record. I mean, really listen to yourself. If something doesn't feel right, guess what? It's not right. Fix it. Do something. Make some type of change. Because again, this is one of my common sayings out too. It's really the law of diminishing effects. It's not the whole, if you continue to do what you've always done, you'll continue to receive what you always gotten. Well, guess what? Is you add stress to your life, you become sick and you're tired and you advance in age and so on. Continue to do what you've always done, things are going to get worse and the bottom is eventually going to fall out. So you need to listen yourself and take that time out for you. Well, Ivana, what's the best way for listeners to be able to get a hold of you? Because I'm sure many are after this experience. You
Thank you
have a
so
lot of
much.
great, lots of great content. I'm telling everybody, like really great content. You got to check Ivana out. I'm really impressed with everything.
You're so kind. Thank you. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in hearing more about federally employed women, the website is few.org.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much again for your time. It was an absolute pleasure having you here today. I'm hopeful and looking forward to more opportunities to connect here in the future. But until then, thank you so very much. And I wish you a wonderful rest of your day.
You as well, Matt. Thank you.